Nobody ever noticed 17-year-old Lucy Mayfield. But that changed the night she kicked in the back door of a crumbling house and carried a sobbing 5-year-old boy out into the freezing dark. The streets of Coldridge, Tennessee weren't used to heroes, especially ones who lived in hand-me-down coats and rode a busted bike with a duct-taped seat. But Lucy wasn't looking to be noticed. All she wanted was to stop hearing that boy cry through the thin walls of her grandma's trailer. Night after night, scream after scream, and nobody did a damn thing. Until she did. That night, she didn't knock. She didn't call the cops. She didn't wait. She acted. And by the time she staggered into the ER, her face scratched, her fists red, and her voice raw from shouting, she was holding onto that little boy like the world might end if she let go. And maybe, in some ways, it did. Because what came next broke open secrets buried for decades. The kind of secrets that rot through small towns like Coldridge from the inside out, while everyone smiles nice in church on Sunday. But it started with Lucy. 3 days before it happened, Lucy was working the late shift at Grinny's Diner. The floor was sticky, the fryer was broken, and her feet felt like someone had nailed them to the cheap rubber soles of her sneakers. The same man in the corner had been nursing his coffee for 2 hours. She knew his type watched too many westerns, smelled like tobacco and stubbornness. Lucy, her manager barked from the kitchen, stop daydreaming and refill that guy's cup. She grabbed the pot, forced a smile, and walked over. You want more, Mr. Raines? He looked up at her with eyes the color of dirty snow. Cold. Faded. Sure, sweetheart. She poured. He didn't tip. Same as always. Lucy turned to leave when she saw Ida little boy's face pressed against the diner window. Pale. Thin. Big brown eyes too wide for a kid that small. And behind him, a woman yanked him away so fast he stumbled. Lucy's chest tightened. She knew that boy. Lived 2 trailers down. Name was Dylan, barely 5. The woman? His mother. Teresa Hagen. Real piece of work. Always high. Always angry. Always bruised in places people didn't ask about. Lucy wiped her hands on her apron and stepped outside. But they were gone. Back at the trailer that night, Grandma Jo was asleep in the recliner, the TV humming with static. Lucy curled up on the couch with her journal. She wasn't a writer, not really. Just someone who needed to put things down so they didn't get trapped in her chest. January 10th. He was outside the diner again. Dylan. Looked scared. I don't know what to do. I keep hearing him at night. Is no one else hearing this? Or do they just not care? She paused. Heard the soft wind whistling through the cracks in the windows. Heard a thud. Then a scream. She was off the couch in a flash, barefoot, already moving. The scream came again. Child's. Sharp. Gutting. She stood outside the Hagen's trailer, fists clenched, heart rattling her ribs. Then she walked back home. But she didn't sleep. The next day, Lucy went to school like nothing happened. Sat in English, staring at the same copy of Mice and Men she'd read twice. Took a test in math she was sure she failed. Ate a soggy peanut butter sandwich in the back stairwell because the cafeteria was too loud, too full of fake smiles and real cruelty. But her mind was with Dylan. And when she got home and heard it again, that desperate cry through the wall, something inside her snapped. She found an old flashlight, a rusted tire iron from under the porch, and put on her dad's army jacket that still smelled like pine and sweat even 10 years after he died. Then she waited. Midnight came, and with it, another crash. Lucy crept down the frost-covered path between trailers. The cold bit at her ankles. Her breath fogged in the dark. She crouched by the Hagen's back door. A broken lock. A kicked-in screen. No one fixed anything in that house. No one cared. She didn't knock. She went in. The smell hit first. Mold. Urine. Cheap booze. Her stomach flipped. Then she heard it. Whimpering. She crept through the narrow hall, heart thudding in her throat. And there he was, curled up in the corner of a bedroom, one eye swollen shut, holding a threadbare teddy bear with no ears. Dylan, she whispered. His head jerked up, eyes wild. It's okay, she said, stepping closer. I'm Lucy. I live nearby. I'm gonna get you out. A creak behind her. Footsteps. Too late. A shadow filled the doorway. Big. Mean. Drunk. Who the hell are you? The man slurred, swaying. Lucy didn't think. She swung. The tire iron cracked against his arm. He roared. She shoved Dylan behind her and hit him again, this time across the chest. He fell back, cursing. She scooped up Dylan and ran. They made it to the ER by 2 a.m. Lucy bleeding from her arm, Dylan silent in her arms. A nurse gasped. A doctor shouted for help. Police were called. Teresa Hagen was found unconscious, drugs in her system, bruises on her neck. The man Teresa's boyfriend was arrested that night. And Lucy? She sat in the waiting room for 3 hours, not saying a word, her hands still shaking. The story could have ended there. But it didn't. Because when Dylan was asked his full name, he didn't say Hagen. He said something else. Something no one expected. He said, Dylan Raines. And suddenly, the man with the cold eyes at the diner, the one who never tipped, who never spoke unless spoken Tao, is sitting across from a social worker, his hands folded tight. I don't have a son, he said flatly. But his face had gone pale. The town started whispering. About a teenage girl who vanished 20 years ago. About a child born in secret. And about who really left her bleeding in the woods the night she disappeared. Lucy didn't go home that night. After the nurses patched up her arm, and someone gave her a scratchy hospital blanket, she sat outside Dylan's room, knees pulled to her chest, shivering. No one asked her to leave. Maybe they were too busy. Maybe they were just afraid to interrupt the girl who showed up swinging a tire iron and didn't back down. By morning, the waiting room smelled like old coffee and Lysol. She hadn't slept. She'd watched the hallway like a hawk, flinching every time the elevator dinged. Then a woman in a gray suit came and sat down beside her. Lucy Mayfield. She nodded slowly. I'm Rachel Kim, Department of Child Services. Lucy stared straight ahead. Is Dylan okay? He's stable. Scared. Quiet. But you got him out in time. Rachel paused, then added, what you did was dangerous, but incredibly brave. Lucy's jaw clenched. He was going to die in there. Rachel didn't argue. Instead, she opened a file. You said his name was Dylan Hagen, but when we asked him directly, he gave us a different last name. Dylan Raines. Does that mean anything to you? Lucy turned to her, confused. Like Mr. Raines? The guy from the diner? Rachel nodded. Walter Raines. Lives 2 blocks from you. Retired. Lives alone. Lucy's stomach twisted. That's Dylan's father? That's what he said. Lucy blinked. That can't be right. He's just some guy. Doesn't even talk to anyone. Why would Dylan say that? Rachel looked her in the eye. That's what we're going to find out. By noon, the hospital parking lot was swarming with news vans. Small towns don't get this kind of drama often, and when they do, everyone wants a piece. Reporters hovered near the sliding glass doors, cameras poised, waiting for a glimpse of the girl whose name was suddenly on every screen in Tennessee. Lucy ducked out the back. She didn't want interviews. She didn't want applause. She just wanted to see Dylan. She peeked into the recovery room. He was curled up in a hospital bed, arms wrapped around that same ragged bear. One eye still swollen, lip busted, but breathing evenly now. She stepped inside quietly. He opened his good eye and looked at her. For a second, he didn't say anything. Then he whispered, "You came back." Lucy's heart nearly broke. "Of course I did." He reached out his hand. She took it. That's when a nurse walked in. "You're not supposed to be in here." "It's okay," Dylan said, clutching her tighter. "She's my friend." The nurse hesitated, then nodded slowly and stepped back out. Lucy sat beside him, voice soft. "Dylan, why did you say that man was your dad?" He blinked. "Because Mommy told me. Said not to tell anyone. But when I was scared, I remembered." Lucy swallowed hard. "Are you sure?" He nodded. Lucy thought of Mr. Raines. How he never spoke. How he watched her pour coffee without ever looking her in the eye. How he always left the diner exactly at 9 p.m. Something about that man had always made her uneasy. Now she knew why. That evening, Lucy went home to find Grandma Jo sitting on the porch with a shotgun in her lap. "Damn news crew's been sniffing around since sunrise," she muttered. "Asked if I raised you to be some kind of vigilante." Lucy slumped into the porch swing. "Guess I am." Grandma Jo gave a dry chuckle. "I told him I raised you to do the right thing. World needs more of that." Lucy stared out at the dirt road. They said Dylan's real last name might be Rains. Like that guy from the diner. Joe stiffened. Lucy caught it. "You know something?" Joe exhaled, long and slow. "You were just a baby when it happened. Before we moved into this dump." "What happened?" "There was a girl. Mary Ellen Cartwright. Sweet, quiet. 16. Got pregnant. Claimed the father was someone important. Nobody believed her." Lucy's breath caught. "What happened to her?" "One day, she vanished. Some said she ran off. Others said she didn't." Lucy sat forward. "And the father?" Joe hesitated. Then she said, "Rumor was it was Walter Rains. But he was 20 years older. Married. Church deacon." Lucy felt cold. So if that's true, then Dylan ain't the first secret that man's tried to bury. The next morning, someone threw a rock through their trailer window. It landed on the kitchen table, shattered glass and all. Wrapped around it was a note. "Mind your business, girl." Joe found it first. Lucy stood frozen in the hallway, heart thudding. "You listen to me," Joe said, her voice hard. "They want to scare you. Because scared people stay quiet. But you ain't built that way." Lucy picked up the note and tossed it in the trash. Neither was Mary Ellen. Detective Ray Morales didn't look like much: jeans, sneakers, and a leather jacket worn thin at the elbows, but Lucy could tell he was sharp. He came to the trailer that afternoon, notepad in hand. "You were the one who rescued Dylan?" Lucy nodded. "You broke in?" "Door wasn't locked." He smiled faintly. "Still counts." "Charge me if you want," she said. "I'd do it again." Ray flipped the page. "Funny thing is, Teresa Hagen's been ducking CPS visits for months. And that man Troy Bennett? No record. No ID. Nobody even knows where he came from." Lucy frowned. "Then how'd he end up living with her?" "That's what we're trying to figure out." He leaned in. "And this part about Walter Rains? The boy saying he's his father?" She nodded. Ray sighed. "That one's messy. Rains is connected. He's got the mayor's ear. Half the police force plays cards at his house. If there's a case here, it's going to take proof." Lucy's hands balled into fists. "Then let's get it." At school, things were different. Some people stared like she was a celebrity. Others whispered when she passed. Teachers gave her tight-lipped nods, like they didn't know whether to be proud or worried. She didn't care. What bothered her was the note shoved into her locker. No name, just 4 words. "He's not your fight." She read it twice, then crumpled it up. Too late. The next clue came from an old woman named Ellie Granger, who walked into the police station 2 days later, holding a cracked leather photo album. "She was my niece," she told Detective Morales. "Mary Ellen." Ray opened the album. Inside were black and white photos, yellowed letters, and a folded document. "She wrote me this before she disappeared," Ellie said. "Never mailed it. I found it in her room after she was gone." The letter was short, but it changed everything. "And Ellie, if anything happens to me, tell them it was Walter. He said no one would believe me, that he'd ruin me if I spoke. I think I'm pregnant. I'm scared. Love, Emmy." Ray leaned back in his chair, lips pressed tight. They had something now. Not just whispers. Evidence. Meanwhile, Lucy was back at the hospital when Dylan spoke the words that broke her heart. "I don't want to go home." She knelt beside him. "You won't. I promise. Will you stay?" She took his hand. "As long as you need." That night, when she left his room, Rachel Kim was waiting. "We're placing him in emergency foster care," she said gently. "But there's another option." Lucy blinked. "What?" "You're 17. In 6 months, you'll be an adult. But if your grandmother agrees, we could consider temporary kinship placement. He knows you. Trusts you. It's unconventional, but under the circumstances. Lucy's world tilted. You're saying I could take care of him? Under supervision, yes. Would you want that? Lucy looked back at the room, then nodded. I'd do anything for that kid. But while Lucy was dreaming of a future where Dylan was safe, others were planning something very different. Late that night, someone lit a fire behind the diner. The flames were caught before they spread far. But in the ashes, they found a scorched Polaroid. It was Lucy, standing on the hospital steps, holding Dylan. A red X slashed through her face. The fire behind the diner was ruled suspicious, but no one was arrested. The Polaroid's inked edges, Lucy's face X'd out in red marker, was treated as a potential threat, but nothing came of it. Just another, unconfirmed incident in Coldridge, like so many things swept under the rug. Lucy didn't sleep that night. Neither did Joe. They sat at the kitchen table, drinking instant coffee in silence. The broken window still boarded up from the last warning. He's scared, Lucy whispered. Whoever he is. Walter Raines. If Dylan's really his son, and he covered up what happened to Mary Ellen, it's all coming back now. Joe nodded slowly. Men like him, they get away with things because the whole town helps them forget. You made him remember. The next morning, Lucy was called to the sheriff's office. Not Detective Morales this time. Sheriff Dale Ingram himself. He was tall, with a gut that strained his tin uniform and a drawl that made everything sound friendly even when it wasn't. Miss Mayfield, he said, leaning back in his chair. I wanted to speak with you face to face. Lucy sat stiffly across from him. You've been stirring up quite a bit of attention lately. News crews, petitions, people digging up 30-year-old gossip. Truth, Lucy corrected. He smiled thinly. Let's not confuse hearsay with truth. Lucy stayed silent. I heard you're trying to become Dylan Hagen's temporary guardian. She nodded. That's right. He tapped his pen against the desk. That's unusual. Some might say inappropriate, given your age. Especially if it's putting you in the middle of something dangerous. Lucy stared at him. You trying to scare me, Sheriff? He chuckled. Just offering advice. Stay in your lane. Let adults handle this. She stood. Seems like the adults were the problem in the first place. Then she walked out. That night, her bike was stolen. She found it the next day in the creek, bent in half, tires slashed, seat torn clean off. Lucy stared at the wreckage, breathing hard. Enough, she muttered. I'm not letting them win. She stormed into the library that afternoon and marched straight to the local archives. The librarian, Ms. Dorsey, raised an eyebrow but didn't stop her. Lucy pulled old newspapers, microfilm reels, everything from the year Mary Ellen disappeared, 2005. Most of it was fluff. Parade photos, PTA meetings. But on the back page of an August issue, she found it. Local teen missing, feared runaway. Mary Ellen Cartwright, age 16, was last seen near Coldridge Creek. Police suspect she may have left town voluntarily, but friends claim she was acting anxious and secretive. Anyone with information is urged to contact the Coldridge PD. No photo, no follow-up story. It was like she'd been erased. But something else caught Lucy's eye, a blurry group photo from the church summer fair, taken 2 weeks before Mary Ellen vanished. In the back corner of the image stood a teenage girl with dark hair. Next to her, Walter Raines. His hand rested on her shoulder. She wasn't smiling. Lucy printed the photo and brought it to Morales. He studied it quietly, then said, You realize what this is, right? Circumstantial. No proof. But it's something, Lucy said. Something people can see. Morales nodded. I've submitted a request for a DNA test. Dylan's blood was drawn at the hospital. If we can get a court order, we can test it against Raines. How long? Couple of weeks. Maybe more. We don't have that long. He sighed. You're right. Then he leaned forward. But we've got another option. I want you to wear a wire. Lucy blinked. What? We need him to say something. Even a hint. You're the only one he talks Tovin a little. Go to the diner. Ask about Mary Ellen. Get him to talk. One word could blow this whole thing open. She stared at him. I'm 17. You're brave as hell. That doesn't mean I'm not scared. He nodded. It means you'll do it anyway. 3 days later, Lucy sat across from Walter Raines at Greeny's Diner. A tiny mic was taped under her jacket. Her heart pounded like a drumline. He stirred his coffee slowly, glancing out the window. You're the girl who took the Hagen kid. Dylan, she said. Yeah. He didn't respond. Lucy swallowed hard. He said something weird. Said his real name is Dylan Raines. No reaction. You wouldn't happen to know anything about that, would you? Walter finally looked at her and smiled. It was slow, chilling. I've heard people say a lot of things in this town. People get confused. Say stupid things. Doesn't mean any of it's real. Lucy's hands trembled under the table. I just think if you knew something about Mary Ellen Cartwright, now might be the time to say it. He leaned forward. His voice was soft. Some girls lie. Lucy flinched. Some girls want attention. Some girls regret choices and blame other people. That girl, she wasn't right. Everyone knew it. Trouble from the start. He sipped his coffee. You should stop asking about her. Lucy met his gaze. Why? What are you afraid I'll find? Walter's face darkened. Go home, girl. She stood, grabbed her backpack, and walked out. Morales was waiting in the alley. You got it, he said. We got enough. That night, a warrant was issued. Police searched Raines' property house, garage, tool shed. In the crawl space beneath the shed, they found it. A tin box, rusted shut. Inside, a torn diary page with Mary Ellen's handwriting. A hospital bracelet with the date she vanished. A baby's sock, yellowed with time. And an old photo. Mary Ellen, pregnant, barefoot, standing in a clearing. The man beside her? Walter Raines. His hand on her belly. The arrest made statewide news. Raines was charged with sexual assault of a minor, obstruction of justice, and conspiracy to cover up the disappearance of Mary Ellen Cartwright. But there was one more shock waiting. A week later, forensics confirmed it. Dylan was his biological son. Lucy stood outside the courthouse the morning of the arraignment. The town square was packed. Some people cheered. Some scowled. But Lucy didn't care. She was there for Dylan. Rachel Kim walked over with a thick folder in her hand. It's official, she said. The judge signed off on it this morning. Lucy stared. You mean? You're his guardian now. Until you turn 18, then we refile. Lucy's knees nearly gave out. She exhaled, shaking. Thank you. Rachel smiled. Don't thank me. You earned this. That night, Dylan moved into the trailer. He carried a small backpack and nothing else. Joe fixed him a grilled cheese, then told him he could pick any movie from the dusty DVD stack. He chose The Iron Giant. Halfway through, he fell asleep with his head on Lucy's shoulder. She watched him breathe, steady and safe. And for the first time in a long time, she felt peace. But Coldridge wasn't done yet. The town had changed. People whispered in a different tone now. Some shook Lucy's hand in the grocery store. Others crossed the street to avoid her. Some called her a hero. Others said she'd ruined a good man's name. But Lucy didn't care what they said. She knew the truth. She'd saved a boy, uncovered a buried crime, and reminded a whole town that silence is never safety. That night, as the movie credits rolled, Lucy carefully lifted Dylan's sleeping body and carried him to the little corner bed they'd made up together that afternoon. It wasn't much, just a mattress, a faded blanket with dinosaurs, and a stuffed bear someone had donated at the hospital, but Dylan had looked at it like it was a palace. She tucked him in gently. Outside the window, she could hear the wind picking up. July storms in Coldridge were fast and violent. The trailer groaned with the gusts, but inside, things were finally calm. For now, Jo stood in the kitchen, washing dishes slowly, like she was working something out in her mind. You did good, kid, she said without looking. Lucy leaned against the doorframe, arms folded. You think they'll really keep him in jail? Jo turned off the faucet. Depends who else falls with him. Lucy blinked. What do you mean? I mean, men like Walter don't act alone. Not in towns like this. He's been protected, propped up. You don't get away with hiding a pregnant girl, threatening her. Maybe worse without help. Lucy's stomach tightened. You think others knew? I think lots of folks knew, Joe said quietly. And they kept their mouths shut. The next day, Lucy found herself summoned back to Morales' office. You're not in trouble, he said the moment she stepped in. But his eyes told her something was wrong. What happened? He tossed a file onto the desk. Walter Raines made a phone call from jail. Told someone to clean up loose ends. Lucy's throat went dry. Who? We traced the call to a landline registered to a man named Leonard Price. Lucy frowned. That's the county commissioner. Morales nodded. Old friends. Raines helped fund Price's first campaign. Guess what else we found? He opened another folder and slid a photo across the desk. It was from 2005. Mary Ellen, Raines, and Leonard Price, all smiling in front of a church sign. Lucy sat down hard. You think he helped cover it up? We think Mary Ellen may have gone to him for help, and he sent her back. Lucy's fists clenched in her lap. Does Dylan know any of this? No, Morales said. And for now, it's better if it stays that way. That night, Lucy heard tires crunching gravel outside the trailer. She peeked through the curtain. A black SUV. No plates. Someone stepped out. Tall. Male. Baseball cap low over his eyes. She stepped outside before Joe could stop her. Can I help you? The man looked up, surprised. I was looking for Joe Mayfield. Joe came out right behind Lucy, shotgun already in hand. I'm Joe, and you're trespassing. The man raised both hands slowly. I'm not here to cause trouble. I knew Mary Ellen. Back in the day. Lucy stepped forward. Who are you? He hesitated. My name's Travis McCall. I was her boyfriend. Before Raines. Joe narrowed her eyes. That name rings a bell. It should. I left town the month after she disappeared. Couldn't take it anymore. Lucy studied him. So why are you back now? He glanced around, voice low. Because I saw your face on the news. And because I've been carrying something for 20 years I can't bury anymore. Inside, he sat at the tiny kitchen table with his cap in his hands. She told me she was pregnant, he said. I thought it was mine. I offered to run away with her. Start over. But then she told me it wasn't. Lucy sat across from him. She said it was Raines? He nodded. She was terrified. Said he threatened her. That if she told anyone, she'd disappear. A week later she was gone. Joe crossed her arms. You tell anyone back then? I was 17. No one listened. I went to the cops. They said she was just another runaway. Lucy leaned forward. Why are you really here? He looked her in the eye. Because there's something buried in the woods, near Coldridge Creek. A place she used to go when she was scared. I think she may have left something there. Or someone did after she vanished. Joe raised an eyebrow. You're saying we go dig up the woods? I'm saying if you want the full truth, that's where you'll find it. The next morning, Morales met them at the trailhead with a metal detector and 2 deputies. They spent 4 hours combing the forest. Then they found it. Half buried beneath a rotted log, wrapped in a garbage bag. A shoebox. Inside, a cassette tape, a hospital ID, and a blood-stained piece of cloth. Morales held it up with gloved hands. This changes everything, he said. Back at the station, they played the tape. It was old, warped, but Mary Ellen's voice was clear. I don't know how long I have, she said, breathless. If you find this, please tell someone. I'm pregnant. It's his. Walter Raines. He said no one would believe me. That if I spoke, he'd ruin my family. But I can't do this anymore. I'm scared. I think he's going to hurt me. Lucy covered her mouth. Joe turned away, wiping her eyes. Morales shut off the player. We're reopening the case. With this we may be able to charge him with more. And Price? Lucy asked. His name's all over the church financials from back then. If he helped cover up a missing girl, he's going down too. By the end of the week, Leonard Price was arrested. The town exploded. Half the town council resigned. The church's pastor stepped down. Donations dried up overnight. And suddenly, people who had been silent for years began to talk. Former teachers, nurses, one old neighbor of Mary Ellen's. All of them, finally, willing to say, "Yes, we saw. Yes, we knew. Yes, we were afraid." But Lucy had not been. And that changed everything. On a warm Sunday afternoon, Lucy brought Dylan to the edge of Coldridge Creek. They sat beneath the same willow tree where the shoebox had been found. "Was my mom really that scared?" Dylan asked. Lucy nodded. "She was brave. But people didn't listen back then. She tried to protect you before you were even born." He held his bear tighter. "I wish I could have met her." Lucy wrapped an arm around his shoulders. "You know what she'd want?" she asked. "For you to grow up strong, safe, and free." Dylan looked up. "Like you?" Lucy smiled. "Better than me." Back in town, a mural had gone up on the side of Greenie's diner. A girl in a flannel jacket. A boy in her arms. The words beneath, "Be brave anyway." And under that, a smaller line, painted in white. "In memory of Mary Ellen Cartwright." A month after the arrests, Coldridge was quieter. Not better. Not yet. But quieter. The news crews had packed up. The court hearings moved to the county seat. The people who once whispered behind Lucy's back now avoided eye contact completely or looked her straight in the eye, nodded, and said nothing at all. But Lucy didn't care. She'd never done this for their praise. She did it for Dylan. And for Mary Ellen. The day of Walter Rain's trial, Lucy stood outside the courthouse, watching as the sheriff's deputies led him in wearing chains. His suit was gone. His dignity was gone. His name now passed around in hushed tones like a curse, not a legacy. Lucy didn't go into the courtroom. She didn't need to. She'd already told her truth. Let the jury hear the rest. That same week, Lucy got a letter. It was from Ellie Granger, Mary Ellen's aunt, the same woman who had brought the photo album to Detective Morales weeks ago. It was written in neat cursive on lavender stationery. "Dear Lucy, I don't know how to thank you. You didn't know my niece. You owed her nothing. And still, you brought her back. For 20 years, she was just a name we whispered about. A story people warned their daughters with. You made her real again. I'm enclosing something Mary Ellen left behind. It was meant for her child one day. I believe she would have wanted you to be the one to give it to him. With love and gratitude, Ellie." Inside the envelope was a smaller note, yellowed with age, written in loopy teenage handwriting. "To the baby I can't wait to meet. If you're reading this, it means something happened. I'm sorry. I love you more than you'll ever know. Your name is Dylan. I hope you grow up kind. I hope someone teaches you to be good. Please forgive me for not being there. I never wanted to leave you. Love, Mommy." Lucy cried for a long time after that. Not for herself. Not even for Dylan. But for a girl who was never given a chance to grow up. Summer faded into fall. Dylan started first grade. He came home every day with dirty sneakers, crayon drawings, and stories about his teacher, Mrs. Wells, who had a dog named Lemon and wore sparkly glasses that made her look like a witch from Harry Potter. Lucy packed his lunches every morning. Woke up early to braid his hair on picture day. Sat on the porch every afternoon with Joe while he played with rocks in the driveway, singing nonsense songs about dinosaurs. They were a family now. Unconventional. Unplanned. But real. One night, Dylan asked her, "Are you going to be my mom forever?" Lucy smiled. "I don't know if I'm old enough to be a mom. But you do all the mom stuff." She nodded. "Then I guess I'll be whatever you need me to be." He reached for her hand. "I just want you." In October, a letter from the Department of Children and Families arrived. It was long and full of legal jargon, but the words Lucy had been waiting for were there, printed in bold. Permanent custody granted. Dylan Raines to Lucy Mayfield. She stared at the paper for a long time, then burst out laughing and crying at the same time. Joe hugged her so tight she thought her ribs might crack. Later, they baked a cake out of a box and decorated it with shaky icing letters. Family isn't blood. It's love. Lucy was offered a scholarship by a small liberal arts college upstate. They said they'd read her story, said they wanted someone like her in their program. She almost turned it down. "What about Dylan?" she asked Morales over coffee one day. "You'll figure it out," he said. "That's what you do. You figure it out." And she did. With Joe's help, she found a 2-bedroom apartment 10 minutes from campus. Enrolled Dylan in the elementary school nearby. Applied for night classes so she could work part-time during the day. It wouldn't be easy, but neither had anything in her life. So she packed their lives into 2 duffel bags and a backpack, kissed the trailer goodbye, and drove north in Joe's old truck. The morning of their first day in the new apartment, Dylan sat on the windowsill and watched the sun rise over the quiet street. "You think she would have liked this place?" he asked. Lucy didn't have to ask who he meant. "I think she'd be proud of you," she said. "And I think she'd want you to be happy." He nodded. "I am." Then he pulled something from his pocket. The note. Mary Ellen's note. He unfolded it gently, like it was treasure. "I read it a lot," he said. "Makes me feel like she's still around." "She is," Lucy said, touching his shoulder. "In you. In everything you become." Back in Coldridge, they held a memorial service for Mary Ellen. 20 years too late. But better than never. They planted a tree in the town square. Put up a plaque with her name. People brought candles and flowers. Some cried. Some apologized aloud to no one in particular. Ellie Granger stood beside the tree and read a letter of her own. "We failed her," she said. "But today, we promise never to do that again. Never to stay silent. Never to pretend we don't hear. For Mary Ellen. For all the girls after her." Lucy wasn't there. She didn't need to be. Dylan was her way of honoring Mary Ellen. And that was enough. A year later, Lucy was sitting on the campus lawn, reading Beloved for her literature class, while Dylan played soccer with 2 neighbor kids. Her phone buzzed. A message from Morales. Verdict came in. Life without parole. She stared at the screen. Felt nothing. No satisfaction. No closure. Just the wind rustling through the grass, Dylan's laughter in the distance, and a quiet knowing that justice had taken too long, but it had come. That night, she wrote in her journal. She hadn't written much since Dylan came to live with her. There hadn't been time. But now she needed to get this out. November 3rd. There's this quote I read once. It said, "The truth will set you free, but first, it will shatter everything." I think that's what happened here. Coldridge broke. But maybe that's what it needed to finally change. Dylan is safe. He smiles in his sleep. He tells people I'm his sister, sometimes his mom, sometimes both. I don't correct him. I never thought my life would turn out this way. But I've stopped thinking in terms of how it should be. I only care about how it is. And right now, it's quiet. It's good. That's enough. She closed the journal, put it back under her pillow, and fell asleep with the window open, the sound of Dylan's breathing from the next room, and a peace she'd never known before. Epilogue. 3 years later, Lucy stood at the podium at her college graduation, wearing a borrowed gown and scuffed boots beneath it. She was the student speaker nominated by faculty, elected by her peers. She cleared her throat, looked out at the crowd, then began. "When I was 17, I broke into a house, carried out a child, and tore the lid off a secret that had been buried for decades. I wasn't brave because I wanted to be. I was brave because no one else would be. I've learned that bravery doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you show up anyway. It means raising a child when you still feel like one yourself. It means saying someone's name when everyone else wants you to forget it. It means love, even when it hurts. So if I leave you with anything today, let it be this. Listen when someone whispers, because it means they don't feel safe enough to shout." She paused. "I heard a whisper once. It came from a boy named Dylan, and it changed everything." The crowd stood and clapped. Dylan, now almost 10, stood on a folding chair in the front row and cheered with both hands in the air. Joe cried into a handkerchief. "And Lucy?" She smiled, because she knew this was just the beginning. Not of a fight, not of survival, but of something better, of life. After the ceremony, as people filtered out into the sunlight with diplomas and flowers in hand, Lucy found Dylan waiting at the bottom of the stairs. He had a small gift box in both hands, wrapped in wrinkled blue paper and tied with a shoelace. "I saved up," he said proudly, "from chores and lunch money and Grandma Joe's coin jar." Lucy knelt to open it. Inside was a simple silver chain. At the end of it, a small locket oval, slightly tarnished, but beautiful. She opened it. One side had a tiny picture of her and Dylan, taken the week they moved into the apartment. The other side, a photo of Mary Ellen. She froze. "Where did you get this?" "Ms. Ellie mailed it last month," Dylan said. Said it was the only picture she had of Mom when she smiled. Lucy's hands trembled. "I thought you should wear it," Dylan added. "So both your kids are with you." Lucy pulled him into her arms. There were no words, only tears and the weight of a love deeper than blood. That summer, they visited Mary Ellen's tree back in Coldridge. The willow had grown taller, its trunk a little thicker, its roots reaching deeper. Lucy brought fresh flowers. Dylan placed a drawing against the plaque, a picture of him, Mary Ellen, Lucy, and Joe hand in hand under a bright yellow sun. They stood there a long while. No one said anything. They didn't have to. The wind whispered through the leaves, as if Mary Ellen herself had become part of the breeze. Back in town, Coldridge had begun to change not just in headlines, but in habits. A new mayor had been elected. More women ran for council. A hotline was set up at the local school for students to report abuse anonymously. Joe even started a self-defense class for teen girls at the community center, just in case, she said with a smirk. The diner put Lucy's mural on its front menu cover. And every year on Mary Ellen's birthday, people gathered at the tree. To remember, to promise better, to keep whispering truth until the world was loud enough to hear it. As time passed, Lucy sometimes caught herself imagining the life she could have had. A normal high school graduation, dorm rooms, dates, weekend trips. But then she'd come home, find Dylan building a blanket fort with cereal boxes and string, and realize she hadn't missed anything at all. She had this. A boy who still asked for goodnight hugs. A house that smelled like peanut butter and crayons. A messy, beautiful life she'd earned with every scar. One night, years later, Dylan woke from a nightmare. He was 12 now. Tall, quiet, smart in the ways of people. Lucy found him on the couch, blanket over his shoulders, staring at the dark. "Bad dream?" she asked. He nodded. "The house. The old one. The yelling." She sat beside him. "It's over, baby," she said softly. "They can't hurt you anymore." "I know," he whispered. "But sometimes I still hear it." Lucy looked at him. "You're allowed to remember," she said. "You just don't have to live there anymore." He leaned into her side. And for a long time, they just sat like that. Together. Safe. When Dylan turned 16, he asked to change his last name. "I want it to be Mayfield," he said. "I want to be who you made me." Lucy cried in the DMV. So did Joe. They celebrated with cornbread, lemonade, and a karaoke machine that Dylan absolutely should not have been allowed to touch. He sang anyway. Loudly. Off-key. Unapologetically. Lucy had never been prouder. Eventually, Lucy became a social worker. Not because of what happened to her, but because of what didn't happen for so many others. She specialized in emergency placements. Kids with bruises and broken shoes. Teens with anger in their eyes and no one left to call. They trusted her. Because she understood. Because she showed up. Because once, someone whispered and Lucy listened. At 28, Lucy stood in the hallway of her office, filing paperwork, when a new case landed on her desk. A 6-year-old girl, rescued from a drug house. No known relatives. Terrified of everyone. Lucy stared at the file a long moment, then walked out of her office, and down the hall, toward the girl's room. She knocked gently, opened the door, and stepped into the room with the same quiet strength that had once carried her into a trailer filled with screams. "Hi," she said softly. "My name's Lucy. I'm here to help." The girl looked up, eyes wary, but curious, just like Dylan's had been. And Lucy smiled, because she knew this was where healing began. Back home that evening, Dylan, now 18 and taller than her, was baking something in the kitchen. He wore an apron that said chef in training, and flour smudged his forehead. "Hey," he said without looking up. "How was work?" "Hard," Lucy said truthfully. "But good." "Hungry." "Starving." He opened the oven. The smell of garlic and rosemary filled the air. She sat at the kitchen table, the one Joe had handed down, full of nicks and burn marks. Dylan brought over 2 steaming plates and 2 cold sodas. They clinked their cans and dug in. No drama, no chaos, just peace. In the end, there was no big finale, no perfect resolution, no fairy tale ribbon tied around the tragedy. There was only this: a girl who refused to look away, a boy who survived anyway, and a future they built together. Messy, honest, and true.